Everyone believed I built the observatory to understand the comet. They praised me for my vision, my leadership, my so-called unshakable hope in humanity's future. But the truth was simpler, uglier. I built this place to run from it. The control room was quiet except for the low hum of the servers breathing around me. A cold wash of blue light from the screens reflected across the polished glass walls. Outside the panoramic observation window, Atlas III burned bright above the horizon, far too bright for any natural comet. It didn't glow like ice and dust. It pulsed, as if following a rhythm. I stood alone in the silence where entire teams used to work. I dismissed them all 3 nights ago. Told the board it was a strategic pivot. They applauded because they always applaud when you speak with enough confidence. No one wanted to know the real reason the project was shutting down. My chest tightened as the comet brightened almost imperceptibly, but I felt it, like an old scar burning before a storm. I rested my palm against the cold glass. The city lights glittered below, but up here I could have been suspended in space itself. People always asked me why I cared so much about Atlas III. Why I spent more than governments. Why I looked at the sky like I was waiting for someone to answer back. I always told them the same lie. I said I saw possibility, hope, new worlds. The truth is, I saw recognition. A soft chime cut through the quiet. One of the auxiliary monitors flickered. A streaming signal pattern binary, then harmonic frequency, then something far smoother like breath slowed to match sleep. I forced myself not to react too quickly, but my pulse betrayed me. I had seen this exact pattern before. Not in a lab. Not in data. Not through any machine. I saw it years ago, long before I had the money, the power, the eyes of the world watching. The monitor flickered again. A faint vibration spread through the floor as if the entire building exhaled. The glass under my hand trembled, not from seismic movement, but from something external, something reaching inward. I whispered, barely audible even to myself, "No, not yet." The comet pulsed again once, twice, precisely matching my heartbeat. I shut my eyes, but the light still pressed through them, as if it existed inside me, not outside the window. I wasn't observing Atlas III. I was acknowledging me. The first time I saw Atlas III, I was 17 and dying. That is the part I never told anyone. Not the investors. Not the scientists. Not the journalists who worshipped the myth they crafted around me. They all knew the version where I was a prodigy who looked to the stars and saw promise. They never heard about the night I saw the sky split open while I was too weak to stand. It happened on the roof of the hospital where they kept me after the collapse. I don't remember the fall, only the echo of the impact. They said I was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt borrowed. Like I never really belonged to the world I woke up in. The night nurse left the terrace door unlocked. I don't know why I walked outside, only that my chest felt hollow and heavy, like something inside me was already preparing to leave. The air was cold, sharp enough to sting my lungs. I remember leaning on the railing, staring at a sky that looked too large to care if I lived another second. That was when I saw it. Not through a telescope. Not through data. Not through machines. Just my eyes. My raw, frightened, 17-year-old eyes. Atlas III, I wasn't listed. It wasn't tracked. No scientists spoke of it. But I saw it silent, slow, and impossibly bright. Not bright like fire. Bright like attention. Bright like awareness. Its light pulsed once. And in that moment, I felt something inside me pulse back, not thought. Not language. Just recognition, as if something ancient leaned close enough to whisper, "You are seen." My knees buckled. I remember gripping the railing so hard my fingers bled. A nurse found me minutes later or an hour later, I still don't know. They said hypoxia, trauma, shock. They said hallucination. But a hallucination doesn't follow you across decades. A hallucination doesn't change orbit to find you again. A hallucination doesn't send the same pulse 5 hours ago through my observatory windows. I had never escaped that night. I had only grown older. Everyone believed I'd built my empire to reach outward. To explore, to expand. To lead humanity beyond the boundaries of Earth. That was the story that made investors applaud and nations cooperate. But the truth was never ambition. It was fear. I built launch vehicles, orbital arrays, Deep space relays, an entire framework capable of monitoring the sky because I needed distance. Distance from the thing that once looked back at me. Distance from a recognition I never asked for. Yet no matter how many satellites I launched, no matter how far we extended human sight, Atlas 3 I remained the one fixed point. The one horizon I could not outrun. The board believed I wanted to accelerate humanity's next era. They spoke of legacy, destiny, innovation. But I wasn't trying to shape the future. I was trying to protect it. I told myself that if I could understand the comet, its cycles, its pulses, its impossible shifts, then maybe I could do more than hide. Maybe I could prevent something. Maybe I could stand between humanity and whatever was reaching from the dark. Years passed. I became a symbol. Headlines called me visionary. They thanked me for guiding humanity toward the stars. They did not know I was trying to keep the sky from falling. Then last week, the orbit changed. Not by gravity, not by mathematics. By intention. The comet aligned with Earth's rotation. All global models failed. Entire physics departments fell silent. I didn't call emergency councils. I didn't summon scientific panels. Because I recognized that shift. It wasn't arrival. It was acknowledgement. Atlas 3, I was not something we were discovering. It was something that had been waiting. They believed I was preparing a solution. The public saw my silence as calm leadership. The investors saw it as strategic secrecy. The scientists saw it as caution in the face of the unknown. But silence is not strategy. Silence is the moment before truth is admitted. The observatory glass reflected my face, lit by the slow pulse of Atlas 3 overhead. I saw a leader the world believed in. But behind the composure was an exhaustion that came from carrying knowledge alone. Not the knowledge of danger, but the knowledge of responsibility. Humanity did not need a hero. It needed someone who understood what was coming. I placed my hand against the glass. The cold no longer felt indifferent. It felt deliberate, like a presence pressing from the other side. For a moment, I saw myself at 17 again, frail, uncertain, clinging to life by threads. Back then, the comet felt like salvation. Now it felt like a threshold. A soft chime broke the quiet. A monitor flickered to life. No equations, no star charts, just a waveform. Smooth. Steady. Breathing. The same rhythm that once kept me alive when my body was nearly gone. Then a voice emerged. Not through speakers, not through the room, but inside the signal itself. It was my voice, but older, worn, carrying the weight of years I had not yet lived. I told you we couldn't hide, it said. My breath trembled, not in fear, in recognition. This was not communication. This was memory from a future that had already happened. The glass warmed beneath my palm. Not burning, embracing. Like something familiar, something ancient was reaching back. The voice continued in the same unshakable tone. You built all of this to delay the moment. Now the moment is here. And you're not meant to face it alone. I didn't step away. Because for the first time in decades, I understood. This was not a warning. It was an invitation to choose who I would be when the world needed someone to stand. Not to run, not to surrender, but to answer. The transmission did not stop. It grew clearer. Not louder clearer, like a memory sharpening into focus. The older version of my voice spoke as though we were standing in the same room. And yet there was no echo, no air displacement, no source. It resonated inside the light. You spent your life building walls, the voice said. But you always knew walls are just delays. Never barriers. My throat tightened. The servers hummed in a rising whine as though responding to the same frequency. Instruments that should have been isolated by shielding began to flicker. Displays shifting into patterns instead of data spirals, branching lines, waveforms that resembled neurons more than cosmic phenomena. It wasn't speaking in science, it was speaking in memory. My memory. The glass before me glowed faintly, warming again. The warmth traveled up my arms, slow and deliberate, like a pulse working its way back into a limb-long numb. You were never meant to stay here, the voice continued, patient, almost kind. You were returned. Temporarily. I didn't ask returned from where. I already knew. I had always known. The near-death incident at 17 had not been an accident. It had been an encounter. For years I told myself I was running from the comet. But hearing my own voice speak back to me, I understood something I had refused to admit. I was not running to save myself. I was running to protect everyone else. Humanity did not need a hero. It needed someone who understood what was coming and who would carry that burden alone. The comet's light pulsed once, twice matching my heartbeat, my breath, my thoughts. The older voice exhaled, my own resignation, aged and exhausted. They will call you mad if you tell them. They will call you a coward if you hide. But the truth is simpler than either. The glow spread through the room, not blinding but enveloping, like the light was not shining at me, but through me. You were chosen because you were already halfway between worlds. I did not feel fear. I felt purpose. The light did not move toward me. In stories, the unknown always approaches. But this was different. The light waited, as though I was the one expected to close the distance. The observatory was silent now. No server hum, no ventilation. No distant city noise. Even my heartbeat felt suspended, no rhythm of its own, only the steady pulse of the comet. I took one step toward the glass. The warmth met me, not burning, not forcing, just aware, like a hand resting gently against my chest from the inside. And for the first time, the truth became simple. I had not survived that night at 17. Not fully. Some part of me had remained with the light. Some part of me had already crossed over. And now the rest of me had simply caught up. The older voice spoke again, not through speakers, but inside my breath. You didn't fail. You just postponed. My reflection in the glass flickered, first the man I am, then the boy I was, then a version older than both, and then a silhouette made only of light. There was no fear, no panic, only recognition. I placed my palm flat against the glass. The glass dissolved beneath my hand like mist. And I understood if I stayed, the world would fracture under the weight of what lived inside me. If I left, the world would remain whole. This was not escape. This was protection. I turned once not toward the comet, but toward the earth below. Toward everyone who would never know how close they came. I did not escape, I said. I returned so you could stay. Then my outline folded into the comet's pulse, calm, steady, certain. The observatory fell silent once more. Not abandoned. Guarded.